Now here is the risk that the Browns had to take with I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan along with Ryan Smith. Plenty on our platter today as we will be talking to Gene Winters, my former producer, and of course works the Cavaliers telecast during the season. We'll break down the NBA championship between Indiana, Oklahoma City, talk about the Cavs prospects, the problems they have with the cap, and certainly we'll talk some Major League Baseball with Gino as well. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Bruce. A lot to talk about today. Obviously, Guardians are in the Bronx, Browns doing who knows what in OTAs, and NBA Finals are set, Bruce. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to start with the Browns and talk about them briefly with the OTAs going on. I guess Sanders has been performing very well, for what it's worth. 3 touchdowns, no picks, 7 of 9. Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, all battling away in the early going. The mandatory OTAs are going to be coming up, but obviously it's going to be interesting to see what they do in making a decision about which 3 will stay with the team.
Yeah, Bruce, you know, it's fun now, all fun and games. Obviously, in voluntary minicamp, all the quarterbacks get a chance. And as we go to involuntary minicamp, mandatory, I should say, those reps for everybody's going to go a little bit down. And then once you get to real training camp in July, that's when you're going to really see who the quarterback's sticking out and who Kevin Stefanski maybe gives a little tell of who's going to start week 1 for us.
You know, I wonder if they're – it seems like it's inevitable that they're going to make a trade. But why would a team be willing to give up a lot for – let's say they trade one of the 2 young quarterbacks. I think that'll be Gabriel myself. Who knows? I mean, who knows? But why would they do that when these teams had a chance to draft them?
Yeah, I think if one of the quarterbacks is going to get traded, it's going to be Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett. I would imagine a team is more enticed to trade for Joe Flacco. A team like the Saints, who need a quarterback now that Derek Carr is going to retire. They have young guys. They just need somebody to bridge that gap until the rookie can get a chance to really shine. So I imagine it'll be Joe Flacco.
You don't think Flacco has a chance to be the starter?
I think he definitely has a starter, and I think he could give you the best opportunity. But I think at the end of the day, he's your future, no. And if he can get you a good asset.
I know, but don't they need to get some wins? Who gives them the best chance to win from out of the gate?
Odds are probably Joe Flacco.
Exactly.
You've seen it. You've seen proof of concept.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll keep tabs on it for you, and certainly it is going to be interesting that at the very least, that's for sure. By the way, as we've been telling you, we will again, and we're very proud to be the media outlet for the Kaulig Companies Championship at Firestone Country Club for all of the seniors. 72 years, Firestone has had such an incredible tradition of history. Some of the greatest golfers that have ever lived have participated in various tournaments. And this is more than a tournament. It's raised $34 million for charitable organizations over the past 2 years, $2.6 million raised and given to over 25 Northeastern Ohio charities. By the way, for ticket information, 1 ticket, 2 experiences. Not only do ticket holders have an opportunity to watch these legends of golf, the seniors, but they also receive complimentary access to the Kaulig Infinity Zone. That's where we will be located with a booth. Come by and say hello to us. There'll be a gigantic stage, entertainment provided, over 50,000 square feet. Elevates fan experience for you. Interactive activities, bar and lounge areas, food trucks, celebrity appearances, and once play ends for the day, the Kaulig Infinity Zone transforms into a full-fledged musical festival, live performances. Again, get your tickets at kauliggolf.com. That is kauliggolf.com. Come and see us at the Infinity Zone next week at Firestone Country Club. If you've never been, it is just one of the most spectacular venues and places, not only in Ohio, but across the country. It has that kind of reputation, as I'm sure you know. All right, when we come back, we'll dive into the Guardians' experience last night and the prospects for the future. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan. Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. Energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Really good ball game last night, opening game of the 3-game series between the Guardians and the New York Yankees in the Apple. 3-2 final, New York unfortunately coming out on top. The Guards starting pitcher Tanner Bibee was really tremendous last night in the opening game of this series. That is until he faced Jazz Chisholm in the bottom of the 7th inning. The Cleveland offense tied the game in the top of that frame thanks to David Fry's single scoring Jose. And Fry had just returned, as you know, from the IL. However, speaking of returning from the IL, the Yankees' Chisholm also had just been reactivated from the IL, and he regained the lead for New York in the bottom of the frame with a line drive leadoff home run. Then Anthony Volpe followed with a solo shot to left, and New York led the ball game 3-1 at that point. Manager Stephen Vogt relieved Bibee, who wound up getting a tough luck loss in this affair, going 6 1/3, giving up 3 runs, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts. Good performance. Bibee now 4-6. His ERA is at 3.89. Meanwhile, Yankees starting pitcher Carlos Rodon continued his brilliance against Cleveland, going 7 innings, giving up 1 run on 5 hits. He had 8 strikeouts. Devin Williams, the former Brewer, returned to his closer's role for New York, and he did give up a run in the 9th inning, but he was able to hold on and notch his 6th save of the year. As far as Rodon is concerned, he's now 7-5 in his career against Cleveland with a 2.90 ERA. In his last 5 games against the Guards, he's 3-0 with 40 strikeouts and sports a 2.64 earned run average. In his last 4 outings against Cleveland, that dates back to 2022, he has allowed only 4 earned runs in 24 2/3 innings and has struck out 32 in 24 2/3. Wow. Now, Detroit got clobbered by the White Sox last night, so luckily the Guards don't lose any ground in the AL Central. We're still 6.5 back, and in 3rd place behind Minnesota, they trail Detroit by 6 games. The Guards are now 15-16 on the road this year, and this season they'll look to even up the series tonight, Game 2. With Luis Ortiz facing Clark Schmidt. Ortiz is 2-6, 4.40 ERA. Schmidt 2-2. Started the season hurt. He's got a 3.95 earned run average. Now, as I detailed on last week's show, the Guardians have got to be careful. They're at a portion of the season where the schedule is very difficult. Following this series with New York, Cleveland comes home for 3 against Houston and Cincinnati. Then it's on to first place contending Seattle and first place contending San Francisco on a West Coast run. Now, some good news. Ace Shane Bieber celebrated his 30th birthday with a successful rehab start at the rookie-level Arizona Complex League Saturday. This was Saturday. 2 1/3 innings, no runs, 1 hit, 5 strikeouts. He was hitting 92-94 on the gun, which is fine for him because that's all he needs with the rest of his stuff when he's got his pinpoint control. Now, he's slated to make his next start this coming Friday with Double-A Akron after throwing a bullpen just yesterday. Now, usually pitchers coming off Tommy John need 4 or 5 rehab starts. So we're looking at probably late June, at the very most early July, because they're only allowed 30 days of rehabbing. Needless to say, we need them back. And also needless to say, Aaron Judge is on track to winning back-to-back MVP awards here in the American League. However, our own Jose Ramirez is having an MVP-type year as well. He's now hitting .330, with 11 home runs and 29 RBIs, 13 doubles to go along with it, and 16 stolen bases. The problem is the Judge is hitting .387 with 21 home runs and 50 RBIs. Ryan, Jose is an underrated superstar, but Judge is off the charts.
I just feel so bad for Jose because he's consistently one of the best players in baseball, and I think he holds one of those records for being top 3, top 4, top 5, whatever, as MVP every single year, it seems to be. And he just seems to be going against guys that have these monster campaigns, and Aaron Judge having a Barry Bonds-like campaign. It's unfortunate. But to talk about Shane Bieber, Bruce, you can't get him back sooner. And Tanner Bibee had a tremendous outing, and at the 5th inning in the game in the Bronx, it kind of seemed like that was going to be one of those games where one mistake was going to cost the team. And listen, that's what happened with 2 home runs back-to-back. By the hands of Volpe and Jez Chisholm. But the thing is, you're not going to win many games regardless if you score 2 runs, and especially against a team like the Yankees. So you're right there on the cusp of it. Good for Tanner Bibee. I think he's I think he's the only pitcher, Bruce, that has gone 7 innings for this Cleveland Guardians team. That can't happen, and you need Shane Bieber to come and make 7 innings because he usually makes it look like easy work.
Yeah, well, as I've been mentioning, too, on the show, we need our starters to go deeper into the games to take the pressure off the bullpen, optimistically thinking that we're going to need that bullpen fresh come certainly September, August and September for that matter, and hopefully into the month of October. We're going to move into the next segment by telling you Gene Winters is next. Bonus time with Drennan on Big Play. I love you, Menor Nissan. Hi, Bruce Drennan here from my good friends at Menor Nissan. Ray Sminchak, the whole staff. As you know, I've been doing a lot of our shows down in Florida, just returned. Great to be back on the home confines of our beautiful studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport for Big Play. But I got to tell you, I drove my Nissan Rogue from Menor Nissan down to Florida, had the rack up on top with extra luggage. It was absolutely the most splendid, beautiful ride. Just as smooth as could be. My wife also drives a Rogue. We rotated driving down there and back, but I just can't recommend it any more so to you. Get on out there, test drive a Rogue or a Murano or any of the other great products that they have out there at Menor Nissan. Don't forget, they're now in partnership with Infinity of Akron and Infinity of Beechwood. Check those great vehicles out as well. Service department is absolutely fantastic. Went back to the dealership to get maintenance after that long drive down there and back. And give them a call. Set up an appointment. Of course, check out their website at MenorNissan.com. That's MenorNissan.com. I love you, Menor Nissan. Now we welcome a familiar face and voice to our show, Gene Winters, my former producer, going way, way back when I was doing Morning Drive on WKNR Radio. Of course, when I was doing the regional sports network here in Ohio, the All Bets Are Off show on Sports Time Ohio, and then Drennan Live on Fox Sports. He is currently still with the network as the statistical graphics designer for the Cavaliers telecast. Gino, always welcome, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just getting the pool open today, so hopefully this weather stinks and I could actually use it and not waste all my time out there for nothing.
I know. It's been a long wait. We deserve this weather, no question.
Yes.
We're at a real critical portion. I want to start with baseball on this segment, then we'll get into the NBA in the next 2 segments. We're at a very critical time, I've been telling the fans, for the Guardians season, because I believe this month of June will determine whether they're buyers or sellers by the trade deadline at the end of July. It's a rough stretch right now, and it didn't get off to a very good start, if indeed you call this the start with last night's game against New York.
Yeah, and that's the part. You're coming off a series with the Dodgers last week, now New York. Houston's coming into town. You have a West Coast trip coming up. As you mentioned, this month of June is very tough for the Guardians. The good part, they're still sitting at that 5-6 games back mark of the Tigers in the Central, but now you have the Twins in front of you. I'm interested to see if they stick around or not. But as you mentioned, this is the time now to start figuring out, are we one of those teams that are going to be in the mix for one of the wild card spots? Are we going to be a team that can actually make a run, a run like last year, get back into the into the finals of the American League and take your chances there? Or are you a team that needs to sell off, start trying to find pieces that can help you for years to come? Because we know being a smaller market team, that is something that the Guardians do have to explore.
Are you surprised by Detroit? They're, as we speak, 40-22. They got clobbered last night by the White Sox, but 40-22 represents the best record in the entire major leagues.
That's the part that surprises me. I thought they would be a factor, of course, here in the Central. They made a very nice run last year with A.J. Hinch taking over, getting his style implemented there in Detroit. But for them to have the best record, you knew Skubal coming off of the Cy Young last year. I was interested to see how some of their pieces offensively would work out. They're getting a bounce back year, if you could call that, or a career year from Javi Baez, as now he's starting to take over that center field role. Torkelson, a guy that was on the teeter of making the roster or not, he's coming out, patrolling first base, locking down that position. And, you have that now 1-2-3 punch in that rotation. They can be a problem here to stick around. And a lot of the talk in the offseason was going to get Alex Bregman, who didn't come. And here they are with the best record.
Now, if you are going to be optimistically a buyer, that means you got to give up a prospect or two. The Guardians have three beauties. Bazzana, who's hurt right now. Kaifas, who's tearing everything up in the minor leagues. He's unbelievable. Yeah. And DeLauder, who has been hurt, but probably the most highly touted prospect they've got.
Yeah, and Chase is the one that I'm interested in to see how he factors in. Is he going to be a player here in Cleveland, or is he going to be that piece that you can go out and move to bring in parts? Now, hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead, but you're going to start to see Shane Bieber get back in. So does that so-called piece that they use to say, hey, we have him already on our roster. We haven't had him for the first 2 months. We were able to stay afloat. That could be one of our moves here at the deadline as we get him back coming off the Tommy John surgery, and then still add a piece or two to help supplement it, where I'm hoping they don't look at just him as, well, this is our move. Now that we have our ace back, we can go ahead and make a run with what we got. I hope they explore what they have in those minors to go out and really solidify both offensively and maybe a little help in the bullpen.
Well, yeah, getting Bieber back will be like making a trade without having to give anything up. There's no question, especially if he comes back healthy. And we know he was clocked at 92, 94 in that rehab the other day, which is all he needs with his stuff if he's got his control. Obviously, if the team, heaven forbid, has to be a seller, I would think Lane Thomas, Carlos Santana, anybody else come to mind? But those are the two obvious ones, are they not?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the guys you would end up moving. I don't see a Sheeman or any of these other younger guys that you have, because you still want to see them develop and see if they can turn into what you projected them as. Maybe a guy like Will Brennan, but does he have any real value if someone wants to, to go out and get him, since he's been floating back and forth? You have obviously bullpen arms that teams would be interested in, but you're not going to give up a Cade Smith. You're not moving Clase, but can you move a Junis? Can you, move some of these, Tim Herron, some of these other pieces that might be nice for a contender to solidify that bullpen?
Still a long ways to go, but looking at some individual statistics with players, I mentioned Judge's numbers off the chart: 387, 21 homers and 50 RBIs. And Ohtani has a chance to also be a back-to-back MVPer with a 288, 23 home runs and 39 RBIs. They're both incredible, really incredible, and they matched up in the World Series. That may happen again. Who knows?
Yeah, that game last week I think it was on Friday, where they both hit home runs in their first at bats when they met up this past weekend. They're just two phenomenal athletes, and you go back and you could think at different decades and the star players in each level, and what Judge is doing, what Ohtani's doing. I mean, it's starting to rival what Barry Bonds did in those early 2000s when he kind of started to take off. Not that his career was bad in the first half, because I think he still would have been a Hall of Famer before switching over and really transforming his career. But he this is what you're watching. Guys are afraid to pitch, and when you make that one mistake, those two make you pay.
As far as the Cy Young, again, way too early, but it looks in the National League like it's Wheeler, 6-2, 2.96 ERA, 76 innings, 94 strikeouts. Chris Sale, 3-3, 3.06 ERA, 67 2/3 and 86 strikeouts. And this kid, Mackenzie Gore of Washington, 2-5 record, but 3.16 ERA, 68 1/3 innings, 101 strikeouts. But playing for Washington kills his chances, I think.
No doubt. Yeah. First player to get to 100 strikeouts this season. And, it just a lefty that they brought in, he came over in the Juan Soto trade, and all those pieces seem to be working for the Nationals as they're starting to build towards something. Yes, they still stink, still under 500, but they're above the Braves, and we'll see if the Braves could make one of their second half pushes and get back into this. But yeah, for a kid like Gore, it's unfortunate that he plays for the Nationals because it's gonna take away from his chances of being a serious contender.
American League, I think, is going to be a lot more competitive. Crochet is having an incredible year, 1.98 ERA, 82 innings, 101 strikeouts. Eovaldi's having a very good year for Texas. Obviously, everybody's kind of foregone conclusion giving it to Skubal, but I think both Carlos Rodon and Max Fried are in the mix too. Both Yankee pitchers, and boy, have they needed those guys considering that Cole is out.
Yeah, no doubt. And you went in the offseason. Of course, you lost Soto. We've talked about it before, all the guys that they brought in, but really solidifying that portion of their rotation has really helped New York to overtake and hold the first place spot there in the American League East. And that's the part with Max Fried. He's the guy I think that can run away with it and take over and be that guy to win the AL Cy Young. He's doing everything right. Yeah, he got hit around a little bit in his last outing, but he's been dominant all season long. You mentioned Crochet. I think unless Boston gets back into it, he's going to fall out of the mix just because of kind of that same Mackenzie Gore factor that we were talking about. Now, again, you have the Boston backing and that bias of that area, but I think it's Fried's to lose.
I failed to mention it back in the National League. Robbie Ray of San Francisco has got to be in the mix too. A phenomenal season. He's previously won a Cy Young, and as long as San Francisco stays in contention, he's got a shot as well. We're going to go to break and come back and now pick Gene's brain about the Cavaliers and the future. Gene Winters coming up next again. Bonus time with Drennan. Big play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home by visiting pureavcorp.com.
I don't know if the disappointment has worn off or at least been simmered a little bit since being eliminated in 5 games by Indiana, but the fact of the matter is we've got to look to the future and what can the Cavs do and what they can't do. Nobody better to ask than Gene Winters, who's so close to the Cavaliers organization. About to be ravaged, if I can, by the aprons above $10 million in the projected second apron. And that doesn't include potentially re-signing guys like Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill. It is a dilemma, Gene.
No doubt. And you have the big contracts that you locked up into your core 4. So now you have to start to maneuver around those. You moved your 2 pieces that you could last year in Niang and Levert. So now you're in that spot where when that trade happened with DeAndre Hunter, you basically locked yourself into bringing this group back again. Now, as you mentioned, you're going to have to find a way to get Sam Merrill in somehow. You're going to have to find a way to get Ty Jerome in. Now, again, you could offer him that $14 million, but if he goes out into the market, can he make more than that because of the fantastic year he had this year with Cleveland, finally being healthy and being able to go out there and show what he can do? Or does Ty say, you know what? I really excelled under Kenny Atkinson. I did the same thing, and I like his style when we were together in Golden State, and try to help you maneuver a little bit to stay here and run this back again. I think the unfortunate part for the Cavs, as you were mentioning, you're within all these new CBA restrictions that we didn't care about before, but now are really coming to hamper the Cavaliers in this offseason.
Well, I think everybody consensus opinion is the untouchables are Mitchell and Mobley, but all this contractual math makes it much harder for the Cavaliers to trade for a player making more money than Darius Garland or Jared Allen. That's a problem. Garland's appeal is more than Allen, I believe, only because that teams aren't necessarily looking for a center. Garland would be missed and harder to be replaced than Allen. Being a point guard, because Mitchell's not a point guard. Mobley could easily move into the center position, which I think increases the possibility for the Cavs to do something. It would have to be a 3-team trade, would it not?
Yeah, and I think the more you start to add on it, I always think back to when the Cavaliers were able to grab Jared Allen the first time around with that trade that I believe ended up being a 4-team trade, where the key part of it was James Harden. Now the Cavaliers were able to get into that and then bring Allen back and be able to work the salaries with multiple teams to make everything work. I think you're going to get in that same boat where it's not going to be a team for team or player for player. You're going to have to get multiple teams involved. If it's 3, 4 down the line, you're going to have to get more teams. And this is where Kobe Altman and the front office are really going to make their money this offseason, trying to find the right pieces and the right way to work around the restrictions that they have. And as you mentioned, Allen will probably be that best piece to move, but Garland is probably right behind him if teams are coming at your door.
What's your gut? Are they going to trade them both, one or the other?
I would think Allen, but again, after winning 64 games and the restrictions that you have, the East you would think would be a little bit down, especially if Giannis gets traded and with Jason Tatum being out most of next season. Who knows with the Knicks and what they hire? Will the Knicks look the same? Of course, Indiana, but I think you can match up with Indiana. So if you run it back again with a 64-win team and then take your chances again, I think the Cavs could explore that option as well, just because of the potential landscape as of today of what the East looks like.
Any comment on the 2 coaches leaving the organization? This is commonplace with NBA teams every year. Brian and Ott are moving on, but like I say, this is nothing unusual.
Yeah, the only part I would worry about is if they end up taking another coach from the Cavaliers, that's currently on their bench to be their head assistant or associate head coach, a role that's a little bit higher than where they are now. But yeah, Trevor Henry was a guy that the Cavaliers really liked last year. I can see him moving into that Bryant role where he's the associate head coach. Then Kenny Atkinson could go in and grab a couple more coaches to add to his staff. But that's the luxury, but also the disadvantage that you have. You win a lot. Teams are going to come after your coaches to help take that team to the next level. So a guy like Brian, a guy like Ott, it's no surprise, and best of luck to both of them as they move on.
Are you surprised New York fired Thibodeau?
I was a little bit. Again, they made their first Eastern Conference Finals in 20 years or 25 years, whatever the number was. He's had them in the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 seasons. Yes, his style wears out quickly on players and management, but he's taking this team to a level that they've been waiting to get back to, to be playing in the Garden, all the mystique and New York and everything. He got them to that level. I'm interested to see what, how they maneuver, what kind of players they keep around, and if they can make that jump with someone else, or do they take a little bit of a step back? It's kind of like what the Cavaliers experienced this year, going from J.B. Bickerstaff, a guy that plays his starters heavy minutes, doesn't rely much on the bench. Thibodeau was that same way. Do they find someone that is the reverse opposite of that? Not to say that the Knicks are going to win 64 games next year, but getting a new voice in there to see how the players respond to it.
Yeah, who do they get? Michael Malone, who won the NBA crown 2 years ago with Denver. Budenholzer's name has been mentioned. Jay Wright, former national championship winning coach at Villanova. Dan Hurley, national championship winning coach with UConn. Or bringing back Jeff Van Gundy. My only question with Van Gundy, are his teeth still sharp enough to bite into some player's ankle?
When I heard his name this morning, I thought the same thing. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are they going to recycle a guy that was great in the last time that they made a run or were relevant in the NBA? But he's very respected now that he's been an assistant. But that's the thing. Like, that's all you, or I shouldn't say all. That's what I remember him for. And obviously, you as well as hanging on the leg of Alonzo Mourning as he trying to break up a fight, and Alonzo's trying to just shake him off like it was a dog biting at his ankles.
There's a rumor, I don't know how much validity there is, that story out of New York that would have the Knicks trading Karl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and that's the part now. Durant. Like, at what point do you give up on making that work with him. Obviously he succeeded when he was with Golden State for a couple of years, but when he was on his own, OKC made that run when it was him, Harden and Westbrook and Perkins and those guys. They made a run, ended up coming up short to one of those Miami teams with LeBron. But then since he's bounced around, Brooklyn never panned out when he put a big three together. Phoenix didn't pan out these last couple of years, teaming them with Booker, like moving Towns and putting Durant with Jalen Brunson. Is that enough to finally get him back to where he needs to be? Not that he's not going to be a Hall of Famer when his career is over, but now that he's bounced around to so many teams, it's starting to take away from what he's been able to accomplish.
All right, when we come back, we're going to have Gene preview the NBA championship. Indiana, can they do it against Oak City? That's next. Bonus time with Drennan. Big play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com today.
NBA championship about ready to get underway. Of course, Oklahoma City, 68 wins, represents the most in the regular season. They had the best point differential in NBA history, 40 wins by 15 points or more. That's a record, by the way. And 7 of this year's wins in the playoffs are by 15 points or more, and 5 of them by 25 plus. 6'5" Jalen Williams actually played at center for them for a stretch because they didn't have their bigs. Indiana, meanwhile, won 50 games in the regular season and upset number 1 seed Cleveland 5 games. New York, they took care of in 6. Both teams are very fast, play at a very fast pace. Oklahoma City, slightly speedier, if you will. Does Indiana have a chance, Gene?
I want to say yes, but reading off some of the stuff that you just went through, and I look back at what OKC did this season to get to where they are in the NBA Finals. Obviously the sweep of Memphis was good, but they actually had to play a very tough series against the Denver Nuggets. That went to 7 games before they were finally able to blow them out in that 7th game and move on to take on Minnesota. And obviously that series went quickly to get them to where they are. But having that adversary, trying to hit maybe a little bit of a speed bump in this postseason, where Indiana has just kind of breezed through 5 games with Milwaukee, 5 games with Cleveland. Yes, this one with New York was a physical series for them, but again, they were up 2-0. They ended up winning it in 6. I think Indiana gives them a little bit of trouble, but again, I just think OKC is just too good with what you were mentioning, having guys playing different roles, stepping up at the right time here in the postseason, and I think it's going to be OKC's championship.
They beat Indiana both times they faced one another this year. Both teams are led by star guards. Both teams are deep, but who has the better bench?
That's going to be that's the part if you're looking for something, and I think I would lean a little bit towards Indiana on this front. But again, you don't win 68 games by accident, and you mentioned all the blowouts that they've been a part of, so their bench has played a lot this season, kind of like what we watched with the Cavaliers, where a lot of guys had career minutes coming off of the bench because you were in blowout games or games that weren't as close, where you were able to develop these guys during the regular season. So when this point came, you can rely on those guys and you're not worried about bringing in your 9th, 10th, 11th guy off the bench and hoping that he can perform. Going in that if I call this guy's number, he's going to be able to do something. But I think this is where Indiana is going to exceed a little bit on that bench side. I really like TJ McConnell coming off the bench. He's just disruptive. He's a guy that can go and get steals. He's a guy that facilitates their offense very well when Halliburton's out. So I would maybe give a little bit of an edge to Indiana, but I think that whoever wins the bench battle will be the team that prevails each game of this series.
Oklahoma City has a swarming, tenacious defense. Indiana has a better half-court offense. However, in the regular season, Oklahoma City actually ranks 2nd in half-court offense. Indiana, number 4.
Yeah, and both of these teams, and we talked about it with Indiana before the playoffs started, they score. But both of these teams are going to put up 120, 130 a night. But you're getting to the point now where defense is going to start to be a factor. So, as you mentioned, start to slow down the game a little bit more. And both of these teams are very good at initiating their offenses. So what defense will be the one to step up first? I like Miles Turner down below trying to slow things down for Indiana. But when you have both of the Williams guys, the SGA coming at you offensively from OKC, I think it's just a trio that's going to be very tough to stop for Indiana. I'm interested to see how physical they get, because that's obviously the calling card for the Pacers this postseason. If you rattle those guys a little bit early, do they shy away and start taking more jumpers, or do they continue to drive to the paint and getting their easy baskets?
Now, who will win the turnover battle? Both teams excel in the transition game. Indiana's the only team that allowed fewer transition opportunities than Oak City in the regular season, but Oak City has the league's lowest turnover rate in the regular season, and Indiana is third.
Yeah, and this is where the defense are gonna come into play. Are you going to be able to get to those 50-50 balls? Are you going to be able to get the deflections after you make them? What team is going to be able to come out and do that? And I think a little bit of that length that we were that OKC has shown this season with some of their guys, the Hartenstein when he was in, both of the Williams, you continue. Caruso, I think, is a good fit there. So you have guys, and he's the only one that Caruso that has NBA Finals experience out of all the players in this entire NBA Finals this year. But you need those kind of guys where you get a little scrappy, you get those deflections, you're diving on the ground, you force those turnovers and try to flip the game that way. We were able to see that in the 5 games that we had here with the Pacers, how scrappy they can get, and once they get off running, forget about it.
Less than a minute, Gino. Oak City's length, athleticism, physicality. Indiana shooting 40% from three-point range in the playoffs. Oak City 33%. That might give Indiana some hope.
Yeah, and that's the part. We were able to see them hit threes, no matter who it was, from Turner all the way down the line. And once they got going and started hitting them, the confidence grew. They continued to take them. And what was that? I want to say it was in that game 5 where the Cavaliers were up. And then Indiana started hitting shots right before halftime, really flipped that game over before they finally were able to close it out. So for Indiana, they just have to continue to stick with it, even if they get down. They've been down in a bunch of these games in this playoffs and have found ways to win. So they're definitely going to be ready if that situation does arise.
Always a pleasure, Gino. Thanks so much. Dive into that pool. It's hot enough.
Yeah, thanks you. That's where I'm heading right now.
Gene Winters, my good buddy, my old friend, and of course, former producer for so many years, now the statistical graphics designer for the Cavaliers telecast. We'll be back in a minute. Ask Bruce next.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Infinity. Luxury experiences for those who dare to be different. Visit infinityofbeechwood.com today.
Let me ask you, Ryan, any thoughts on what Gene, of course, shared with us pertaining to the championship series?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you talk about a statistical guru. That's Gene Winters. Every little tidbit he knows about NBA and every team is just absolutely astounding. I'm excited. A lot of people are down on this finals because you don't have a big market like in New York and LA or Boston. But I think it's very exciting. You have the best team throughout the whole entire season in Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the deepest with the MVP, Shai Gilgeous. On the other hand, you have the Pacers, Tyrese Haliburton, who I think has been the best, at least most clutch player in this postseason so far, a younger team that has kind of been the hero of the playoffs. I think it's a perfect, and now you get to this final moment. Maybe it's a little bit of David versus Goliath. I understand the Thunder are one of the most heavily favored finals teams that we've seen, at least in my lifetime. I believe top 10 ever. So I think it'll be good. Both fast-paced teams, both play good defense, and both are deep benches. I think this could be for one of the better finals.
You think the networks are going to take a beating on the ratings?
I really don't think so. I think people like to think that, but, well, actually, I take that back. They probably will. But true ball knowers and true people who enjoy the game of basketball for what it is rather than ratings, I think you're going to get more people who appreciate this finals. The numbers might be down, but the quality, I think, of basketball is going to be very good.
Ask Bruce segment, fire away.
Alrighty, here we start with the Guardians. Hey, Bruce, the 2-hole in the Guardians lineup has been a conundrum all season. Do you believe that player to solve that solution is on the roster currently? And if so, which player would you ride in that slot?
Well, Jose has been in just about every position at the top half of the order. I don't think you can put him there. You can put him there, obviously. I'd like to see him more with ducks on the pond if you can get those hitters ahead of him on base. Aaron Judge hits in the number 2 position for the New York Yankees. But, that's where Jimenez came in. He was our number 2 hitter, and the Indians at the time thought that he was going to be their number 2 hitter for many years to come. Of course, now he moves on to Toronto, and he's hitting in the bottom half of their order, but he was never able to supply that bat. So I don't know who that's going to be. Maybe David Fry now that he's back.
Well, speaking of, hey, Bruce, who do you think will be the odd man out? Kyle Manzardo, David Fry, Carlos Santana, or CJ Kafis?
Oh, I think it's going to be Santana if indeed we fall out of the race or fall deeper out of this first place contention. The thing is, though, and we're going to know by the end of June, I believe. Maybe not. It might go into July where we're still very much alive and in the wild card hunt. And if that's the case, we're not going to be selling players. If we do get to that point where we're so far out of first place and we're not in serious contention for a wild card, then I would think it's got to be Santana. Some team could use a Santana with that batting eye and on-base percentage. But, that's the thing. Are we still going to be alive with the wild card? And even though Detroit seems to be running away with it right now and shows no signs of letting up, that's going to be interesting to see if we can stay in the hunt for that WC.
Alrighty, hey, Bruce, do you believe there's some type of mental stigma when the Guardians play the Yankees in the Bronx?
Well, I think there is with every team in the majors. That's been traditional here in the American League for over a century. And it certainly has maintained. There was one portion of my life where they went into a funk, and that was after they won the pennant in 1964. They lost in 7 games in the World Series to the St. Louis Cardinals, and then they didn't get back to the World Series until 1976. And they were swept, ironically, by the Big Red Machine and the Cincinnati Reds. But outside of that, they've been in contention, and there's that aura about them. I'll never forget the first time I walked into Yankee Stadium and came through the tunnel of the visitors' dugout and into the dugout and stepped out, and I'm looking around at Yankee Stadium saying, wow, here it is. So it's the house that Ruth built, if you will.
Alrighty, last one for you. Hey, Bruce, the Guardians remain above 500 by a few games. However, their run differential is negative 17. How indicative is run differential in terms of how good a team actually is?
Oh, I think it's very significant, and we've become so modernized with various statistics, WAR, et cetera, so many others. WHIP, I think, is a very valuable statistic to reference when it comes to pitching. Walks and hits per innings pitched, I think, is very recognizable in evaluating pitchers. So, yeah, I think run differential is another significant, valuable statistic that we have come with here in the modern era. Unfortunately, Ryan gives me the signal. That's all the time we've got for this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Next week, we'll preview the U.S. Open. Mike Yeager, golf professional, PGA golf professional, will join us. That's going to be at Oakmont in neighboring Pennsylvania, one of the toughest golf courses in the world. Well, I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. You have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio, and I love you, Cleveland.